So let's compare the newer iPhone 16e, the new budget device from Apple, and the previous iPhone 13 Pro from years ago, which is very, very impressive even today. Comparing these devices, I think will be very interesting. Price point, iPhone 16e is $600. It is the cheapest iPhone in the iPhone 16 family. No more iPhone SE as the budget device. This is the lowest price iPhone you can get. And it is pretty much like a new segment. It goes into the iPhone 16 family. It's just the lowest price device, even though it's still $600. It reminds me of the iPhone XR, which was launched 7 years ago in 2018. And that one had a price tag of $750 and was part of the iPhone 10 family. So very comparable. The iPhone 13 Pro, price-wise, it was a $1,000 device when it launched several years ago. But now you can find it on the cheap, in great shape, for around $350, and you get a lot for it that is still very modern, more modern than the 16e. So let's get into it. So the 16e is a 2025 device versus the 2021 iPhone 13 Pro. They have the same size and dimensions, but weight-wise, the 16e is more lightweight than the 13 Pro. Build quality, both are great, except the only difference between having glass front, glass back is that the 16e has aluminum frame versus stainless steel on the 13 Pro. The 16e is eSIM only, while the iPhone 13 Pro has eSIM and a nano SIM, so that's an advantage on the 13 Pro. Both have dust and water resistance, IP68. You could dunk it in water for 6 meters. So that's pretty nice on both of these devices. Now let us get to some real interesting comparisons. Now we're getting to the display. Both of these have a 6.1-inch display. On the front, they look exactly the same. They have that notch at the top. It is an older type of design. The newer ones have dynamic island, so the 16e has an older look on the front. And the actual display itself, the 16e has an older, slower 60 hertz refresh rate, while the iPhone 13 Pro is the first iPhone to have a ProMotion display, 120 hertz refresh rate. So the iPhone 13 Pro just has a better display in terms of refresh rate, very super smooth scrolling, so it makes the iPhone 16e very cheap with its refresh rate in the screen department. Now, from the front, the iPhone 13 Pro wins just because of that refresh rate. Very, very nice. It was one of the few features that define the iPhones, the Pro models. On the software front, we have newer software on the iPhone 16e, iOS 18. The 13 Pro has iOS 18 as well, started with iOS 15. So you're just getting several more years of updates on the 16e. It's just a future-proof device software-wise. Now we're getting into the internals. The 16e and the 13 Pro have 128 gigs. So it's a tie right there, more than enough for most people. But RAM is actually different. The iPhone 16e has better RAM at 8 gigs versus 6 on the 13 Pro. This is for Apple Intelligence on the 16e. You won't get that on the 13 Pro. But both devices run very fast as of today. The 16e is just more of a future-proof device. The chipset and the amount of RAM and the storage on the 16e is the same as the 16 Pro. So just more powerful specs internally with the 16e, while the iPhone 13 Pro is starting to show its age in the internal department. But let's get back to the physical back of the iPhones right here. And the 16e, very plain on the back, a single 48 megapixel camera, which takes great pictures in general. The 13 Pro, however, has 3 cameras on the back, the main camera, telephoto, and ultra wide. So you got a better array of cameras on the iPhone 13 Pro. And this makes a big difference if you have a special use case where you want to just take better pictures, wider angles, and it just does a better job of having more options taking pictures and videos. So that's a downgrade on the 16E. It reminds me of the iPhone XR, which had that single camera on the back. So if the front of these devices look the same, but the back of the devices, you could tell that the 13 Pro is more modern, actually. More modern, and it has the 3 cameras on the back, so more premium on the back. Both of these have 4K selfie cameras. Newer Bluetooth on the 16E. The bottom for charging is going to be a major difference. USB-C on the 16E, Lightning on the 13 Pro, and obviously the 16E has the better charging system now because you can use a single cable to charge all of your devices. And let's jump right back to the display and the front, and we have Face ID on both of these devices, and it's a tie. So the iPhone 16E has Face ID at the top of the notch, and it doesn't have dynamic island. So both of these are in the old school realm of on the front with the notification thing that happened in activities, live activities with the dynamic island. So it looks older from the front, but functionality is still the same with great Face ID detection. Battery wise, the iPhone 16E is just a way better battery life than the iPhone 13 Pro, although you get great battery life from the 13 Pro if you're careful with it, but you get 26 hours of video playback on the 16E. Apple claims to have the best battery life in any 6.1 iPhone in the 16E, so it trounces the 13 Pro's battery life. But you don't have MagSafe, and that's what the iPhone 13 Pro has. It has Qi 2 wireless as opposed to Qi 1 on the 16E, so a more robust charging system on the 13 Pro. So overall, what do I think of both of these devices? What are the things that stand out? Well, if you hold them in your hand, both of these look the same from the front. Flip them around to the back. That's where you see a huge difference. The 16E looks older, looks cheaper with the single camera. A 13 Pro looks premium, has a better camera setup with the 3 cameras on the back. You flip it to the bottom, you have USB-C on the 16E versus older Lightning on the 13 Pro. Internally, the iPhone 16E has powerful specs that'll future-proof this device and also add Apple Intelligence, while the 13 Pro is looking long in the tooth with the older processor and RAM. But I think one of the main takeaways from this is also that the 16E has a slower refresh rate, very cheap feature that Apple hasn't updated in forever. It just keeps having this older 60 hertz refresh rate, while the Pro phones continue to have really fast refresh rates, and that's a huge difference in using these devices on a day-to-day basis. So the 13 Pro is a better device than the 16E if you don't care about having the crazy future-proof processor and amount of RAM, and the charging doesn't really matter to you. I think the overall better device is still going to be the 13 Pro, especially that you could get it for half the price almost of a new iPhone 16E. Nothing really stands out besides battery life on the 16E today in 2025. So that's been my comparison of the iPhone 16E and the older iPhone 13 Pro.